Hello, my name is Sean Paul. I am part of the Sociology Deviance class, and today I'll be talking about the social learning theory in family violence. So first, so before we understand what the social learning theory has to do with family violence, we first need to understand what it is. So, the social learning theory was founded by Canadian born American psychologist Albert Bandura. And basically, the theory suggests that people learn from others through observation and imitation and modeling. For example, like say for instance, you see your dad like let for example, let's say, a child sees their dad, they're getting dressed, in a certain way. And the child then decides to, imitate tries to do what the dad does. That's basically what the social learning theory is. Basically you want to do what others do. Basically following the leader. And an experiment that Alba Bandura did to further this was the Bobo doll experiment. So in this experiment, adults were given basically like a blow up doll or something like that, and they were asked to act aggressively with it, and they were asked, how would they interact with it while their children watched on. And most of them, acted aggressive with it, punching, kicking it, tossing it. And so when their children, you know, so when the children were brought in to see how they would act with the doll, they started doing the same things as their parents, punching, kicking it, throwing it. That's social learning theory, Um, yeah, so that's basically social learning theory, you're learning from others on what they do, and you take what you see and apply it to yourself. So now you're probably asking, what does this theory have to do with family violence? For example, say for instance, you grew up in a very abusive household, your parents always arguing and all that. And like say for instance, like your dad, whenever he's angry with you or your mother, he starts hitting on her, because he just can't take it. Now, say for instance, that child from that abusive family grows up, and he's also in a household like that's in the exact situation that he was in when he was a child. He starts hitting his wife too. And and that's how social learning theory applies, because the child learned violence from his dad at a young age to get his way. He saw what his dad did, and then he applied it into his life as he grew up. Now, of course, there are some, criticisms against, the social the against this theory. So one is that it disregards how biological or hormonal predispositions can influence behavior. Um Basically, how the basically, a person's brain, has it been altered, a certain way, you know, because have they because basically they're saying, like their brain functionality, they're at the normal, so why isn't it working? Another critique is that basing the theory on the dynamics between the individual, their environment, and their behavior is too loose, making it impossible to determine which factor is influencing the others. A third is the theory is wrong in assuming that changes in the environment will automatically lead to changes in the subject. And they have a point, the third critique, the critics have a point with this one because not all people who come from abusive households, they're gonna act, not basically, not everyone from an abusive household, they're not gonna act out like the same way they saw in the household. Some people, coming from abusive households, they live normal and perfectly healthy lives. Like, even though they experienced what happened at a young age, that didn't stop them, from being, what we would call normal. And a fourth critique is that it ignores a person's biological state. Like, for once again, like, how are they feeling up in here, like their mental state. Like, sure, they went through all this abusiveness as a child, but like their mental state is like perfectly all right. So like, why isn't it work? So like, why isn't it working? So yeah. So, anyways, that was my video on the social learning theory on family violence. My name is Sean Paul, and I will see you next time. Peace.